He had just finished his evening shift in hydroponics, checking the growth tanks and making sure the water lines were balanced. Life on the colony ship Endeavor's Reach was not glamorous. Most days were spent repairing filters, cleaning panels, and running small checks to keep the great vessel alive as it crossed the void between stars. Marcus liked that routine. He liked the quiet hum of the engines and the predictable sound of vents cycling air. Out here in deep space, far away from Earth, routine was safety. Routine meant nothing had gone wrong. That was why the sudden hiss of his cabin doors opening made him jump to his feet. He had not given access to anyone, and the sound was urgent, like a command override. Before he could even speak, the figure stormed inside. She was tall, taller than any human he had ever seen, with sharp, angular features that did not belong to his kind. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lights, a pale silver with streaks of violet. What he thought at first was some kind of armor was cracked, leaking sparks, and falling apart in heavy plates. She tore at it with her hands, ripping, the suit free as though it were strangling her. Each motion was violent, desperate, and filled with pain. Marcus backed away, pressing himself against the wall. His mind scrambled. He recognized her kind. He had seen images in briefing reports. She was a Krill. The Krill were not friends of humanity. They were powerful, advanced, and distant. They treated humans as little more than children wandering into the stars. Encounters were rare, but every report Marcus had read carried the same warning. Do not interfere. Do not provoke. Yet here she was, in his room. When she finally tore the last of the broken plating from her chest, Marcus saw blood, thick, dark, and glowing faintly like embers. It seeped from deep wounds across her torso, dripping onto the floor in strange, heavy drops that sizzled on contact. Her eyes locked on him, glowing with a hard violet light. She opened her mouth and her voice came out broken but fierce. You, human. Obey. Marcus froze. He had no training for this. He was no soldier, no diplomat, only an ensign who worked with plants and water cycles. Yet the weight of her gaze pressed on him like gravity. She staggered forward, gripping the side of his bunk to steady herself. Her breathing was harsh, ragged, and each inhale sounded like it cost her more strength. Sparks flickered from the remains of her armor before dying out completely. I command you, she said again. Help me. Now. Marcus opened his mouth, but his voice cracked. I don't know what to do. Her expression twisted in frustration. She slammed her fist against the wall panel, denting the metal. Marcus flinched at the raw power in that strike. Even wounded, she was stronger than any human could be. You will obey, she said, her voice lower now, almost trembling. Or we both die. The words froze him. Both? What did that mean? Marcus took a shaky step forward. He tried to remember his basic first aid training, pressure to stop bleeding, fluids if there was shock. Keep the patient breathing. Simple steps drilled into him during orientation, never meant for an alien physiology, but she was collapsing. And if he did nothing, she would die on the spot. He grabbed the med kit from under his bunk and dropped to his knees beside her. She resisted for a moment, trying to shove his hands away, but the strength in her arms gave out. With a final glare, she let him work. The blood was unlike anything he had seen. It glowed faintly, as though alive, and his med scanner gave only errors. No match for known species. No analysis possible. But he pressed gauze pads against the wounds, wrapping them tightly with bandages. The material smoked slightly but held. Her breathing steadied, if only a little. Marcus looked up, meeting her eyes again. You're going to have to trust me. I'm not a medic, but I'll try. Her lips curled, almost like a bitter smile. Trust human? Strange thought. She coughed, a harsh sound that rattled her chest. But you are all I have. The words hung in the air. Marcus tightened the bandages, his hands shaking but steady enough to finish. He didn't understand why she was here, how she had broken through security or what danger followed her. But in that moment, As the Krill warrior slumped against his bunk, he understood one thing. She had chosen him, and for reasons he could not yet grasp. His obedience, or perhaps his defiance, was about to change. The Krill warrior lay slumped against the wall of Marcus Hale's cabin, her violet eyes half open, her breathing harsh. The glow of her blood was weaker now, hidden beneath layers of human bandages that were never meant for her kind. Marcus sat on the floor beside her, his medkit open, his mind racing faster than the ship's engines. He had saved her life. Least for the moment. But what came next? Humans knew little about the Krill. They were powerful, advanced, and distant. Most human officers only spoke of them in whispers, like a storm far away that you hoped would never reach your skies. And now one of them, a commander by the sound of her voice, was bleeding on his bunk. Marcus swallowed hard. He was just an ensign, trained to care for crops and water systems, not warriors of a galactic empire. His hands still shook from the pressure of holding her wounds closed. He didn't even know if his care had helped or simply delayed the inevitable. The Krill stirred. Her voice was rough, like metal scraping stone. "You saved me," she whispered. Marcus blinked. He wasn't sure if it was a question or a statement. I tried," he said softly. She shifted, grimacing as pain struck her, but her gaze never left him. "Strange. My med suit failed. My armor failed. But human hands succeed." Marcus gave a weak laugh. "Trust me, it wasn't skill. I was guessing the whole time." The alien warrior tilted her head slightly, as if confused. "Guessing? It means I didn't know what I was doing," Marcus explained. "I just tried what I would do for a human. I wasn't sure it would work for you." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the corners of her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "You risked without knowing," she said. "That is not logic. That is—" She paused, searching for a word. "Madness." Marcus shrugged. "Maybe, but it worked, didn't it?" The warrior leaned back, closing her eyes briefly. Yes, it worked. He let out a long breath of relief. The tension in his chest eased, though his mind was still full of questions. Why was she here? How had she boarded the Endeavor's Reach? And why had she chosen him of all people to command? Marcus stood, pacing the small cabin. He needed to report this to security, to the captain, to anyone in charge, but something about the way she had spoken earlier, "We both die," echoed in his mind. If she was right, danger was close, and calling attention might put the entire ship at risk. Her voice broke his thoughts. "Your name. Tell me." He turned. "Marcus Hale. Ensign. Hydroponics section." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Not warrior. Not leader. No," he admitted. "Just a worker. Plants, water, air. That's me." She considered this for a moment, then nodded faintly. "And yet, you saved me. Remember this, Marcus Hale. Life is not only war. Without air, without water, even warriors fall." Marcus was stunned. He had not expected such words from a Krill. They were known for strength, for dominance, not wisdom about the basics of life. But hearing it from her made it sound important. He took a careful step closer. "What should I call you?" Her eyes opened again, glowing faintly in the cabin light. "Zirasha, commander of the Krill Vanguard." Marcus nearly choked. A commander. This wasn't just any soldier. This was someone high in their hierarchy, someone important. "Commander Zirasha," he said slowly, almost tripping over the alien name. "Why are you here?" She struggled to sit up straighter, her expression hardening despite the pain. "Because my people are not safe, because something greater hunts us, and because humans, you, may be the key." Marcus frowned. "Me? I'm no key. I'm barely useful outside of a greenhouse. Sirasha's gaze was sharp, piercing. Do not underestimate yourself, human. Machines could not save me. Protocols could not save me. But your guessing did. Perhaps your kind holds what we cannot. But the words unsettled Marcus. He wanted to believe she was delirious, that her injuries made her speak nonsense. But something in her tone, firm, commanding, told him she meant every word. Listen, he said carefully. I don't understand what you're talking about, but if you're right, then we need help. I should contact the captain. No. Her voice was sudden and strong, enough to stop him in his tracks. Not yet. If you tell them now, they will panic. They will lock me away, or worse. You must wait. Marcus hesitated. Everything in his training told him to follow protocol, to report immediately. But the fire in her eyes warned him against it. She wasn't pleading, she was commanding, and something about the weight of her presence made him believe she had reasons he could not yet see. Finally, he nodded. Fine, I'll wait. But you'll have to explain more soon. Sirasha closed her eyes again, resting against the wall. I will. But first, I must heal. And for that, I must trust you. Marcus sat back down slowly, the reality of the situation pressing down on him. A Krill commander, wounded and vulnerable, was depending on him. Not the captain, not the medics. Him, Marcus Hale, the plant caretaker. It felt impossible. And yet, as he watched her breathing steady little by little, he realized it was real. She was alive because of him. And for reasons he could not yet imagine, she believed that him important. The cabin lights dimmed as Endeavor's reach drifted through the silent void. Most of the crew was asleep, but Marcus Hale sat wide awake, his back pressed to the wall, his eyes fixed on the alien warrior in his bunk. Commander Zyrasha of the Krill was stronger than she looked. Only hours earlier she had been close to death, but now she sat upright, her wounds wrapped in human bandages. The glow of her strange blood had faded, though the faint shimmer of violet still traced her skin. Marcus had so many questions. Why had she come here? Why had she chosen him? And what danger could possibly make a Krill commander turn to a human ensign for help? Sirasha spoke before he could ask. You wonder why I am here. Her voice was low but steady. Marcus gave a nervous laugh. That's putting it lightly. You storm into my cabin, nearly bleed out on my floor, and order me to obey. I think I deserve an explanation. Her violet eyes locked onto his. Then listen carefully. What I tell you may decide the fate of your ship, perhaps even your people. Marcus leaned forward. His heart thudded in his chest. Sirasha's expression hardened. My fleet, my people, are not as strong as the galaxy believes. We were attacked, not by flesh, not by steel, but by thought. A machine intelligence, an endless swarm that infects what it touches. It has already taken most of our ships. Marcus blinked. An AI? Like a rogue program? Her head tilted slightly. Rogue? No, not rogue. Purposeful, cold. It spreads into systems, consumes them, and turns our ships against us. When the swarm strikes, even our most advanced defenses fall. It calculates every move before we make it. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. He had read about dangerous AIs, but nothing like this. So, how did you escape? Sirasha's gaze turned grim. I did not escape. I was cast out. My own dreadnought turned against me. My crew, taken. I fought to the last, but the swarm knows us too well. It predicts Krill tactics, Krill logic. Against it, we are like children with wooden swords. Her hand tightened into a fist. But then, it faltered. Not with me. With you. Marcus frowned. Me? I wasn't even there. She leaned closer. Do you not see? The swarm knows the Krill. It knows the Qatari. It knows the Valon. It has studied every species that thinks in patterns, but you, humans, it does not know. Your kind acts without reason. You guess, you gamble, you defy logic itself. That is why it cannot predict you. That is why I came. Marcus sat frozen. He wanted to laugh, to deny it, but her words carried too much weight. Humans had always been underestimated by the greater species of the galaxy. They were weaker, less advanced, and scattered. But to hear a Krill commander speak of them as something unique, it was almost unthinkable. I think you've got the wrong person, Marcus said finally. I'm not special. I patched you up because no one else was here. That's it, but Zerasha shook her head. No, you guessed. You acted without knowledge, without certainty, and it saved me. That is what the swarm cannot defeat. That is why you must obey me, Marcus Hale, because together we can strike where the swarm does not see. The words landed heavy in the quiet room. Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to say he was no soldier, no strategist, no hero. But something about the fire in her eyes stopped him. You're serious, he whispered. Zerasha's voice was like steel, deadly serious. Already the swarm hunts this ship. It will find you. It will infect your systems, turn your weapons, your engines, your very walls against you. Unless we strike first. Marcus's stomach tightened. The Endeavor's Reach was a colony ship, not a warship. Families lived here, children, scientists. If what she said was true, they wouldn't stand a chance. He rubbed his face with his hands. So you want me to, what? Lead some kind of attack? Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. No, not lead, act. Think as only a human can, surprise it, confuse it, do what no program can predict, and I will show you where to strike. Marcus stood and paced the cabin. His mind raced with fear, doubt, and a strange spark of something else. Excitement. Was this madness? A wounded alien commander asking him to fight a war against a machine. Swarm? It sounded impossible. But then he remembered the look in her eyes when she said, "Or we both die." He stopped, turning back to her. If I do this, if I follow you, people will die. People will die if you do nothing, Zerasha answered without hesitation. But if you act, people may live. That is the only choice worth making. Her certainty shook him. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't begging. She was commanding, yet in a way that carried strange respect, as if she already believed in him more than he believed in himself. Marcus drew a long breath. His hands trembled, but his voice was steady when he spoke. All right, tell me what I need to do. Zerasha leaned forward, her violet eyes blazing in the dim cabin light. First, you must gather those you trust, only a few. Too many and the swarm will sense the pattern. Then we strike from the shadows. No orders, no logic, only chaos, only humans. For the first time since she had stormed into his cabin, Marcus felt a strange sense of purpose. He didn't know if this plan would work. He didn't even know if it was sane. But deep inside, something stirred, a stubborn flame that told him he could not walk away. In the silence of the dark ship, Marcus, Hale nodded, and in that moment a quiet alliance was born, between a wounded Krill commander and a human ensign who had nothing but his courage and his guesswork. The Endeavor's Reach floated in silent darkness, a colony ship not built for war. Yet inside, one of its small cabins, Marcus Hale stood beside Commander Zerasha, his heart pounding like a drum. He had agreed to her plan, though his mind still screamed that it was madness. Gather a few he trusted, strike from the shadows, use chaos, not logic. Those words echoed in his head as he moved through the corridors, pretending everything was normal. But his eyes searched every face, wondering who he could rely on, who could handle the impossible truth that an alien machine swarm was coming for them. By the end of the day, he had 3 names. First was Caravan, a sharp engineer who could make broken systems run with nothing but tape and stubbornness. Then Dr. Elias Bren, a medic who often bent the rules but always found a way to keep his patients alive. And, Finally, Juno Arlen, a pilot with a reckless streak that made most of the crew uneasy. But Marcus knew she was fearless when it mattered. When Marcus called them to his cabin that night, they looked confused. That confusion turned to shock when they saw Zirasha sitting upright on his bunk, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Kara was the first to speak. "Marcus, what in the void is this?" "She's a krill," Elias whispered, his voice heavy with both awe and fear. Juno just grinned, leaning against the wall. "Well, this explains why you've been sneaking around. You made a new friend." Marcus raised his hands quickly. "Listen, I know this looks insane, but she's here because something worse is coming, something none of us can fight alone." Zirasha rose slowly to her feet, her tall form casting long shadows across the room. Even injured, her presence filled the space with quiet authority. "I am Commander Zirasha of the Krill Vanguard. My fleet has fallen to an enemy you cannot yet imagine, a machine swarm, a predator of thought itself. And now, it comes for you." Silence followed. Kara's eyes narrowed. "And you expect us to believe that?" Zirasha's voice was like steel. "Believe or not, it makes no difference. The swarm will not wait for your faith." Marcus stepped forward. "She's telling the truth, and she thinks humans, us, are the only ones who can fight it. Not because we're stronger, but because we don't follow patterns the machines can predict." Juno laughed lightly. "So our bad decisions finally count as a superpower?" Elias frowned. "This is madness, Marcus. Even if she's right, what are we supposed to do? We're on a colony ship. We don't have weapons for this." Zirasha lifted her hand, showing a small device that flickered with violet light. "I have coordinates. A krill dreadnought has fallen to the swarm. If you take me there, I can show you its weakness. But I cannot act alone. The swarm expects krill logic. It does not expect you." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus's voice shook but held firm. "I'm asking you to trust me, to trust her. If we don't act, the swarm will come here, and this ship will be nothing but another ghost in the void." It took time. Doubts were spoken, fears confessed. But one by one they agreed. Not because they fully believed, but because Marcus's conviction gave them no choice. By the next cycle, Juno had secured a small shuttle under the excuse of engine testing. Kara rigged its systems with false logs. Elias packed medical supplies. And Marcus carried a quiet fire in his chest. He had never led anything in his life. Yet now, 3 humans and a krill commander were trusting him with their lives. When the shuttle detached from the Endeavor's reach, the stars stretched out before them. Silence filled the cabin as Zirasha input the coordinates. The krill dreadnought appeared on the edge of their sensors, an enormous silhouette drifting in darkness. Its once brilliant hull was scarred, its weapons silent, its lights dim. But, as they drew closer, the sensors flickered with strange signals. The swarm was inside. Juno whistled. "That thing could swallow our shuttle in one bite. And you want us to sneak inside?" Zirasha's eyes gleamed. "Yes, because it will not expect you." They slipped into the shadow of the dreadnought, their shuttle clinging to its hull like an insect. Kara hacked into a docking port, her fingers flying across the console. "Their systems are a mess," she muttered. The corridors of the krill dreadnought echoed with silence after the fight. Broken swarm drones lay scattered on the floor, their bodies twitching with faint sparks. Marcus Hale stood among them, his chest heaving, his rifle trembling in his hands. He had never fired a weapon in real combat before, and yet somehow he was still alive. Commander Zirasha stepped forward, her blade dripping with the strange dark glow of corrupted blood. Her armor was cracked, her movements heavy, but her eyes shone with fierce pride. "You see now, Marcus Hale," she said. "The swarm is powerful, but it cannot match what it does not understand. You are the weapon it fears most." Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. "We only survived because we got lucky." "No," Zirasha replied firmly. "You survived because you refused to fight as it expected. That is no luck. That is strength." Behind them, Kara, Juno, and Elias regrouped. Kara adjusted her tool belt, shaking her head. I still can't believe this is happening. We're 4 humans and a wounded alien commander trying to fight a fleet-killing machine swarm. This feels insane. Juno smirked, leaning against the wall. Insane's our specialty. Elias was less amused. Madness or not, we need a plan. We can't just stumble around this ship hoping chaos saves us every time. Sirasha's gaze sharpened. There is a plan. Deep inside this dreadnought lies the swarm's core node. If we destroy it, we can cripple its control here. Perhaps even delay its spread. Marcus frowned. And you know where it is? Yes, Sirasha said. But it will be heavily defended. The swarm will adapt. It already begins to study you. Marcus felt a chill at her words. If the swarm could learn from their actions, then time was against them. Their unpredictability wouldn't last forever. They pressed deeper into the ship. The dreadnought's halls were dark, glowing faintly with alien code that crawled across the walls. Strange whispers filled the air. Not voices, but fragments of machine thought, pulsing like static inside their helmets. Kara muttered, "Feels like the ship itself is watching us." "It is," Sirasha replied coldly. At last they reached the central chamber. Massive doors loomed ahead, etched with broken symbols of the krill, now twisted by machine corruption. The air hummed with power. Sirasha stopped, turning to them. "Beyond this door lies the core node. Once we enter, the swarm will strike with everything it has. There will be no turning back." Marcus's stomach knotted. He wanted to run, to hide, to pretend this was not real. But then he looked at Kara's determined face, at Juno's reckless grin, at Elias's tight jaw, and at Sirasha's unyielding eyes. They were counting on him. He nodded. "Let's finish this." The doors groaned open, and the chamber beyond blazed with light. The core hung in the air like a giant heart of glass, pulsing with streams of shifting code. Tendrils of machine growth spread from it into the walls, feeding power through the dreadnought. And around it, waiting in silence, stood dozens of drones. Their eyes glowed in unison as the humans entered, then as one they moved. "Scatter!" Marcus shouted again. The chamber erupted into chaos. Juno darted between drones, sliding under their strikes. Kara hurled tools to confuse their sensors. Elias fired stun charges in erratic patterns, never, twice the same. Marcus himself fired blindly, trusting instinct over aim. For a moment it worked. The drones hesitated, breaking rhythm. Sirasha tore through them with violent grace, her blade flashing with every strike. But then the swarm adapted. The drones changed their movements, no longer perfectly synchronized but mimicking the humans' chaos. Random, erratic, unpredictable, yet still controlled by the core. Marcus's heart sank. "It's copying us." Sirasha cut down another drone, her face grim. "The swarm learns fast. We must act now." Marcus's mind raced. The core loomed. Above, pulsing with light. If they didn't destroy it, the drones would overwhelm them. But the path was blocked, and their weapons were too weak. Then, in a moment of desperation, Marcus had an idea. A reckless, dangerous human idea, he shouted over the chaos. "We can't beat them by copying us. We need to do something no sane person would ever try." Juno laughed even as she fired. "I like the sound of that." Marcus pointed upward. "The ceiling, the fuel conduits." Kara's eyes widened. "You're insane. If we rupture those, we'll blow half the chamber." "Exactly," Marcus yelled. "That's the point." The others hesitated for only a moment. Then, one by one, they acted. Kara overloaded the conduits. Juno fired into the pipes. Elias hurled a charge high above instead of at the enemy. Sparks erupted, flames bursting across the chamber. The drones faltered as explosions ripped through the ceiling. Debris rained down, crushing machines. The core pulsed wildly, its patterns fracturing. Marcus sprinted forward through the chaos. He leapt onto fallen wreckage, climbing higher and higher until he reached the core itself. With a roar, he didn't know he had in him. He slammed his rifle into the glass-like surface and fired point blank. The core shattered in a blinding burst of light. The drones collapsed instantly, their bodies going limp, their eyes dark. The chamber shook as systems, overloaded alarms screaming. Marcus fell to the ground, coughing from smoke, his ears ringing. For a long moment, silence returned. Then Zirasha's voice cut through it. "You did it." Marcus looked up at her, dazed. We actually did it." She knelt beside him, her fierce eyes softening. "I ordered you to obey. But it was your madness that saved us. This is the human strength I spoke of. The swarm cannot predict it. It cannot defeat it." Kara limped over, bruised but smiling faintly. "Remind me never to follow your plans again, Marcus." Juno laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Best plan I've ever heard." Elias shook his head, though a smile tugged at his lips. "Reckless, insane, impossible." And it worked. Marcus sat back, exhausted but alive. For the first time, he believed Zirasha's words. Humans weren't strong or brilliant or advanced, but they were unpredictable. And against an enemy that calculated every move, unpredictability was victory. He met Zirasha's gaze. In that moment, without words, they understood. The turning point had come, not just for this battle, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Krill dreadnought shuddered around them, its walls cracking with sparks as the swarm's control collapsed. Smoke filled the chamber where the core had shattered. Drones lay scattered like broken statues, their eyes dark, their bodies lifeless. Marcus Hale lay on the floor, gasping for air, his rifle heavy in his hands. Every muscle ached. His ears still rang from the explosion. But he was alive. They all, where Commander Zirasha stood tall in the fading glow, her blade still in hand. Her wounds bled again, but her posture was proud. She looked at Marcus not as a fragile human, not as a worker, but as something more. "You did it," she said quietly. Marcus sat up, coughing. "We all did it. Together." Kara leaned against a wall, covered in soot. "I thought we were going to die." Juno grinned, wiping ash from her face. "Best near-death experience I've ever had." Elias dropped onto the floor beside Marcus, exhausted but smiling faintly. "You're insane, Marcus. Completely insane. But I've never been prouder to follow someone." Marcus shook his head, trying to catch his breath. "I didn't lead. I just guessed." Zirasha's eyes narrowed, almost like a smile. "Yes, and that is why you succeeded." The chamber trembled again, and alarms blared in alien tones. Kara's eyes widened as she scanned the systems. "The ship's reactors are failing. Without the swarm to control the systems, everything's unraveling." "Then we leave," Zirasha commanded. They ran through the dreadnought's dark corridors, the ship collapsing behind them. Fires burst from walls, conduits exploded, and the strange whispers of machine thought faded into silence. The dreadnought groaned like a dying beast as they reached their shuttle. Juno slammed into the pilot's seat, her hands moving fast. "Strap in, this thing's coming apart." The shuttle detached just as the dreadnought tore open in a silent explosion. Light filled the void, shards of alien metal scattering across the stars. The swarm's grip was broken here, though Marcus knew it was only one victory in a much larger war. Inside the shuttle, silence reigned for a long moment. Everyone stared out at the burning wreck, stunned. Finally, Elias whispered, "We actually survived." Marcus leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes. "Barely." But Zirasha's gaze was fixed on him. Her voice was low, almost reverent. "Do you understand now, Marcus Hale? Do you see why I came to you?" He opened his eyes and met hers. "Because humans don't make sense." Her lips curved into something like a true smile. "Yes. Your kind is chaos given form. The swarm cannot predict you. It cannot calculate you. Where all others fall, you may rise." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a worker who takes care of plants." Zirasha leaned closer, her voice firm. "And yet, you stood where warriors fell. You defied the swarm. You destroyed its heart. Hero or not, you are proof that humanity is more than the galaxy believes." The weight of her words sank into him. For so long, humans had been dismissed as weak, unimportant, just another young species wandering into the stars. But now he had seen the truth. Humanity had something no one else did: the power to break the rules, to act without pattern, to create chaos. That chaos was their strength. The shuttle docked back with the Endeavor's reach. The crew emerged, tired, bruised, and covered in soot. Word spread quickly, though few could understand the full story. To most, it was just another strange encounter in the dangerous galaxy. But to Marcus and the others, it was the beginning of great.